The Great Prostitute on the Seven Hills. Based on Protestant propaganda, one can conclude that the Great Prostitute is the Catholic Church and perhaps even the Pope himself. However, this is a false conclusion. It was and is very beneficial for Protestants, who use such interpretations to win Catholics into their ranks, who would want to serve their great prostitute. However, anyone who examines history more deeply than the official version quickly realizes that Protestantism is in no way inferior to Catholicism. They are just as guilty of shedding innocent blood. I have checked the main argument of Protestant pastors, which they use to call the Catholic Church their great prostitute. Namely, they refer to a fragment of the book of Revelation. Revelation 17 verse 9. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains, on which the woman sitteth. Protestant translation, KJV. They connect the statement, the 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman is seated, with the view that Rome, where the Pope resides, is built on 7 hills. Now, most people never check this information, but I did. According to legend, the city was founded by Romulus on the Palatine Hill, Mons Palatinus, so it originated from 1 hill and not 7, but that's understandable. A popular proverb says that Rome wasn't built in a day. The city developed gradually, covering an increasingly larger area. At some point, it covered 2, then 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 hills. Of course, it didn't stop there and continued to develop. Today, Rome, if I counted correctly, is on 11 hills. Here is a list of these hills. 1. Aventine, Mons Aventinus. 2. Palatine Hill, Mons Palatinus. Its western slope was named Sermulus. 3. Quirinal, Collus Quirinalis. It consists of 3 peaks, Latiaris, Mutialis, and Salutaris. 4. Viminal, Collus Viminalis. 5. Celius, Mons Celius. 6. The Esquiline, Mons Esquilinus. Consisting of the peaks, Oppius, Cispius, and Fergutal. 7. The Capitoline Hill, Mons Capitolinus, whose pass is called the Asylum, divides the northern summit of the Arcs from the southern summit of the Capitoline Hill. The above are considered to be the 7 on which Rome was to be founded. However, already in the times of the Apostles, the city included 8 hills. The Roman writer Festus mentions a festival celebrated on December 11th with a procession that touched 8 hills, Palatium, Velia, Fergutal, Subura, Sermulus, Celius, Oppius, Cispius. 8. Velia, a hill in Rome, located between the central part of the northern slope of the Palatine Hill and Oppius Mons. In the years 80 to 81 on this hill the Emperor Titus built a triumphal arch. Later, Rome expanded and encompassed more hills. 9. Pincio, Mons Pincius. A hill inside the city walls built in 270 to 273 AD by Emperor Aurelian. 10. Janiculum, Italian, Gianico, Latin, Ianiculum. 11. Vatican, Latin, Mons Vaticanus, Italian, Monte Vaticano. A hill in Rome. Since 1377, the main seat of the papacy. Since 1929, most of the area has belonged to the Vatican State. Vatican Hill is not one of the 7 hills of Rome. As you can see, Catholicism really settled on only 1 hill, and one that was never counted among the mythical 7. True, at one time the popes had power over all of Rome, but even then it had at least 9 hills, not 7, and this is a detail that does not fit the Revelation. At the time of writing the book of Revelation, Rome covered 8 hills, when the popes ruled it covered 9 hills, and currently it covers 11 hills, but the popes only cover 1 hill with their power. At the time when Rome covered 7 hills, there was no papacy yet. The claim that the great prostitute is Catholicism is untrue and is based on mythology that has perpetuated the association of the 7 hills with Rome. Mythology, however, has more in common with pagan beliefs in idols than with true faith and Holy Scripture. This is all the more obvious when we show greater insight, which we are encouraged to do by the content of Revelation itself. Revelation 17 verse 9. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains, on which the woman sitteth. 7 heads are 7 hills, and vice versa hills are the same as heads. Since their prostitute sits on 7 heads, it means that she has power over their minds, or their heads are occupied with the matter of their prostitute. Their hills are a symbol of power over which their prostitute exercises her control, and this is not about literal hills. It makes absolutely no sense to explain that the 7 heads are 7 literal hills as the Protestants suggest. Without heads, the beast is blind, deaf, and brainless. Since it is the heads that direct the beast, it cannot be said that the beast is directed by literal hills, i.e., that the heaped up sand, times 7, directs the beast. This misinterpretation is spread because it suits the Protestants and is also beneficial to the real prostitute, who thus operates without drawing attention to herself. Protestants, as their name suggests, are protest-oriented. History shows that their main goal is to oppose Catholicism and the Pope, which unfortunately distorts their way of thinking. Moreover, note that Revelation itself explains that these heads and hills are kings. Revelation 17 verses 9 to 10. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains, on which the woman sitteth. And there are 7 kings. This Protestant translation can be misleading. Let's see what the other translation of this passage looks like. Revelation 17 verse 9. This calls for a mind with understanding. The 7 heads of the beast represent the 7 hills where the woman rules. They also represent 7 kings. Revelation itself explains to us that the 7 heads are the same as the 7 hills and the 7 kings. Further on in the other translation we read, Revelation 17 verse 10. 5 kings have already fallen, the 6th now reigns, and the 7th is yet to come, but his reign will be brief. This means that the 7 heads of the beast do not rule at the same time, but in a specific order. 5 kings, heads and hills, are already in the past: Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece. At the time John writes the Revelation, there is a 6th king, Rome, and the 7th is yet to come. In the time of the 6th king, that is Rome, the beast is to cease to exist. Earlier, because about this beast we read, Revelation 17 verse 8. The beast, which you saw, once was, now is not, and yet will come up out of the abyss and go to its destruction. The inhabitants of the earth whose names have not been written in the book of life from the creation of the world will be astonished when they see the beast, because it once was, now is not, and yet will come. Around 100 AD we learn that this beast is gone. We do not learn that their prostitute disappeared for some time. It seems that she sits on the heads of these 7 kings all the time, so she sits on the heads of Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and also sits on the heads of Rome, although at that time the beast, animal, disappears. The next 7th king, who has their prostitute sitting on his head, is today's Anglo-American power. For the second time in history we have a 2-part power. We read about this today in the book of Daniel. Daniel 2 verses 41 to 43. The feet and toes you saw were a combination of iron and baked clay, showing that this kingdom will be divided. Like iron mixed with clay, it will have some of the strength of iron. But while some parts of it will be as strong as iron, other parts will be as weak as clay. This mixture of iron and clay also shows that these kingdoms will try to strengthen themselves by forming alliances with each other through intermarriage. But they will not hold together, just as iron and clay do not mix. Not many people know that for a very long time the successors of the 6th power were the Turks and the Germans. The Turks more symbolically, and the Germans quite seriously considered themselves successors of the Roman power. The Western imperial title officially passed in 962 AD to the German kings, who were recognized as Roman emperors by the Roman East, Byzantium. The Holy Roman Empire, sometimes colloquially called the Roman-German Empire, officially ended its existence in 1806, when Emperor Francis III was forced to abdicate by Napoleon I. However, this was a temporary setback, and the Germans did not give up recognizing themselves as the Roman Empire. They quickly began to rebuild their power, and even Hitler referred to Roman traditions. Formally, The Roman Empire existed as a state or idea of a state continuously from 27 BC to 1806 AD. However, the monarchical title of Roman Emperor survived even longer. Since the capture of Constantinople by the Ottomans in 1453, their sultans used the title Roman Emperor, Turkish, Kaiser-i-Rum. This title ceased to exist with the dethronement of the last sultan in 1922. Turkey had barely conquered the eastern part of the Roman Empire, or Constantinople, when their prostitute jumped on the head of the king of Turkey. A man named Nasi wrapped the sultan around his finger. He got him drunk, according to biblical terminology. Their prostitute took over almost complete power over Turkey. Joseph Nasi, also Joseph Nasi, Joamikes, Yosef Nasi, headed a secret organization and had a huge influence on the wars waged at that time throughout Europe. He even made efforts to revive the beast, which as we know had disappeared for some time. To this end, he financed the Turkish invasion of Cyprus. A new state was to be established there. However, the time had not yet come for the beast to return from the abyss of non-existence. His plan failed. As soon as the Roman Empire was approaching its final collapse, representatives of their great prostitute began working on influence in the newly emerging power. They took an active part in this. In America, they had a great influence on the state that was being created there, and in England, they operated through sorcerers. You didn't expect it, reader. They really did operate through sorcerers. In Europe, where witches were hunted, almost every king had sorcerers with him. At that time, so-called white magic was invented and given a scientific character. From then on, science was to become a new god, and under its banner, a lot of evil could be smuggled in, just as it is done today. In England, the leading sorcerer, apart from the famous Nostradamus, was John Dee, occultist, Kabbalist, alchemist. It was Dee who came up with the political doctrine of the future power, and it was he who came up with the phrase British Empire. He practiced his prostitution with Catholics and Protestants. Revelation 18 verse 23. And you deceived the nations with your sorceries. Two powers, Great Britain and the USA, defeated Germany twice in the 20th century. The second victory finally showed who was the seventh power in the world. At that time, the red, scarlet, to be precise, beast, which is the eighth king and which is heading for destruction, returned to the world stage. Let's go back to Daniel's prophecy. He mentioned that the seventh king would be divided. Daniel 2 verse 43. This mixture of iron and clay also shows that these kingdoms will try to strengthen themselves by forming alliances with each other through intermarriage. But they will not hold together, just as iron and clay do not mix. This is exactly the case with the Anglo-American power. They are not a monolith, although they cooperate closely. They are genetically related, the biblical term, human seed, because the USA was founded to a large extent on the basis of English settlers. It is therefore the same country, but not the same. I probably don't need to write who the beast of Revelation 17 is. I've given so many clues that it's obvious if you're willing to think a little. This beast was around in the time of the seven kings, so from the time when Egypt was a powerhouse. It disappeared in the time of the sixth king, Rome, and reappeared after World War II, when the seventh king proved to be another biblical world power. Soon will be translations about the beast from Revelation.